All right, Anthony. The ButteCast, what I do generally is about people who are from Butte, lived in Butte, traveled through Butte. I don't know if have you ever been to Butte, Montana?
I have not, no, sir.
Yeah, but I saw your story, and I thought that what a great story to talk about because you have a story that I think can probably relate to just about everybody that's going to be listening, no matter if you're in Butte, the Carolinas, New Mexico or
Yeah,
wherever.
yeah, I'm over here right now in the land of enchantment, New Mexico. Pretty much retired 1 December 21, and my wife's from the actually the Navajo Nation near Gallup, and we decided to stay around here near Cannon Air Force Base. So,
You like is there scorpions down there? That's what I heard. There you might find a scorpion in your shoe.
yeah, yeah, believe it or not, I had one on a sink one time, and when I lived in a different town, but still New Mexico, and then there's a lot of rattlesnakes and more tumbleweeds and cow patties, and I know what to do with. So,
Yeah. So that's pretty
yeah,
much all I know about New Mexico is Breaking Bad, Better Call
yeah.
Saul, and scorpions.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's that car wash. I forgot what they call it, but up in Albuquerque, that's like a national monument over here.
Yeah, it's like
With
triple
Breaking
A
Bad.
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, something
A1.
like that.
A1.
Yeah,
I think it was A1. Have an A1
A
day.
one sounds right. Yeah, A1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which such a great show. I watched that at least three times from beginning to end on Netflix.
yeah, yeah.
But so you grew up in was it South Carolina or North
North
Carolina?
Carolina. I grew
North
up.
Carolina.
If you know where Asheville's at in the mountains, there. I grew up about an hour west of there, a small town called Sylva, North Carolina. So out in the middle, pretty much nowhere. Small town. You could back in the day probably throw a baseball across the whole town. Everybody
Yeah.
knew everybody.
Yeah, and you got the Apple right in the Appalachian Mountains.
Yes, sir.
Is
That's
that where
correct.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it seems like a pretty a beautiful place to grow up, really. I mean, the scenery wise, at least.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially this time of year, man. The all the coniferous trees and the all the orange and red, type leaf colors, stuff like that, and you see the river in the valley. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah. And I think I said you were born like in about 83, 82, 83.
82, yeah, April
Yeah.
7th of 82, and I was born under a full moon there. My dad told me, and that's sort of where sort of infatuated with the moon my whole life, and then later on in my career, the moon would be I guess like a lighthouse for me, if you will,
Yeah.
and that's where the whole title Moonchild came from. So.
Yeah. Were you an only child?
I had an older sister. She's 4 years older.
Oh yeah. So you didn't have a brother to play baseball with and all that stuff.
No, no, none of that. We had a group of us growing up. We were all pretty close, man. That lived, I say walking distance, probably about 2 miles or something like that within each other. So, yeah,
Yeah, which was walking distance for us back in those days, right?
yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah,
My kids now, if I ask them to walk 3 blocks, they think I was making them do the baton death march or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
But times have definitely changed in that. So, your dad was a Vietnam veteran in the Air Force.
He was. Yeah, yeah. He was in the first combat communication squadron, and I was this is way before I was born, obviously, and
Yeah,
he was stationed out of MacDill in Tampa, Florida. There.
yeah. Did he have a lot of stories for you? My dad was in the my grandpa was in World War II. He was in the Navy. My dad volunteered for the draft in '67 and ended up going to Korea. And any of the stories I get from my dad or what I used to get from my grandpa were just about everyday life. They were never about like the battle, much. It
Yeah.
was more about cleaning the deck and stuff like that. Did your dad tell you much stories from Vietnam?
No, no, not really, to be honest. I mean, there was some funny stories here and there, about like, guys getting thrown out of the NCO club and like,
Yeah,
he was in the Philippines at one point, and one guy was on like I guess like a power line type thing, and he said the guy was like taking pop shots from, whoever. But yeah, other than that, man, it was pretty much nothing about that. There's a lot of the quality of life type stuff, and Air Force, a lot of TDYs with golf clubs. But granted, that was a different era back then. But
yeah.
yeah, sort of he painted that picture for me. Nothing against the other branches, but like Air Force has really good chow halls, man, really good gym, everything. Quality of life is amazing.
Yeah, a
So he
little bit.
sort of steered me towards that way.
Yeah. Well, my dad lived in a Quonset hut in by the DMZ in Korea for
Oh
two
man.
years. So he basically raised me of telling me, no, you don't want to go to the military. He kind of pushed me away from ever
Yeah.
thinking about. Even though when I would have went and I graduated from high school in 1993, there was I mean it was relative peacetime. It was after the Gulf War, and I could have served 8 full years in the military without having any kind of real war at all. but he still didn't want me to go. Did your dad, did he encourage you to go to the Air Force, or is that something you just always wanted to do?
He encouraged me honestly. I think he saw and I recognized myself too. I was going, nowhere academically, I guess. No basketball scholarship or anything like that,
Yeah.
And basically, it came down to the conversation of there's a reason I joined was because like, hey, like, you're about to be 18, like you're a senior, right? Like, either get a job, go to college, or get out. That typical dad talk to a son, and
Yeah.
and I had talked to a Navy recruiter, then a Army recruiter, and that's when I like started leaning on my dad. Hey, dad, what should I do? And that's when he told me about sort of the ops tempo of the Air Force and what to expect. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna give this a try.
Yeah, and
So,
my grandpa was I always wondered why he wanted the Navy. He actually in Butte, there's a town Boulder is about 30 miles away. It's halfway between Butte and Helena, Montana. And they weren't taking, even though it was World War II was going on, the Navy wasn't taken anymore. Everyone wanted the Navy. So he
oh
hitchhiked to Boulder to sign up for the Navy in Boulder.
yeah,
As a, dropped out of high school, hitchhiked up there, signed up, and I asked him why the Navy. He said, because I wanted a bed every night.
oh
And this
yeah,
kind of, the quality of life kind of thing. He may have been in the South Pacific, but he had a place to sleep instead of he wasn't sleeping in the dirt like he would have been if he was drafted into the Army.
oh yeah, yeah. And it's I tell people it takes all branches, and all walks of life, man. And that's that's the beauty of the U.S. military, right? Is like our adversaries, like we get into like near peer, like China, Russia, whoever. They haven't found out a way to defeat the volunteer force, right? Like
Yeah,
and I know there was a draft back in, it's a little different, but just that American spirit and just the send me attitude, right? Like and like I said, that takes everybody from every culture, every state,
yeah.
you name it.
Yeah, and we saw that a bunch after 9/11 too. Of course, you were already in, and because you went in what in about a year and change before 9/11.
Yeah, it was July 18th of 2000 is when I joined. So you're looking
Yeah,
at a year, some change. Then 9/11 happened at my first base there.
yeah. So the people who went in to after, because I obviously the recruiters would. My mom made me take the ASVAB test to prepare
Oh
for
yeah,
the SAT and ACT,
yeah.
which did help me anyway. I wasn't much at those taking tests, but I had the recruiter coming and talking to me about the National Guard, and it was 1 week or 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer,
Oh yeah,
after basic training. And I didn't like the idea of basic training, but that just seemed like, it wasn't a lot, even though it was too much for me, but it wasn't a lot. But now people who signed up for the National Guard after 9/11, they pretty much knew they were going overseas for at least a year. So
oh yeah,
I have so much respect for the people who signed up for the military in the years after 9/11 because they signed up knowing they were going somewhere.
oh yeah, yeah, 100%. The whole, like everyone in America, like a whole, my life did a 180 at that point, and that, there was words like, I learned the basic training, like the core values of integrity first, and service before self and excellence. Always like all these words, patriotism, honor, right?
Yeah.
They were just words to me still, and then that happened, right? And I'll never forget, I was at my first base, and I wasn't always a special missions aviator. I came in as a weapons loader, basically a fancy way of saying a guy who loads bombs and missiles on the fighter jets. And
Yeah.
I was at Seymour Johnson. It was a Strike Eagle, the F-15E there, and I was on mid shift. I believe it was from like midnight to approximately 8 in the morning. And I remember I just fell asleep, right, and one of my buddies comes and bangs on the door, and the first plane had hit at 8 something, whatever the time was there, and then show my age here, but we go into the day room, like a common area, and there's like an old tube style, like TV that may have had 3 or 4 channels, one of those being like AFN, the news, stuff like that, and
Yeah.
and then 9 something, I think the second plane went hit the other tower, and I realized at that point, man, like I'm sitting on the sideline sort of right, and like like what's different in the firefighters' DNA, and the cops, what makes those guys run in those burning buildings that day when
Yeah.
everybody ran out, and like a lot of us had I wasn't raised, and all that, and I was like, man, like I want to be a firefighter, So I spent my first years as a weapons loader, and then my second 5 years as a Air Force firefighter there at Charleston Air Force Base, and you know, um, I get to this basically fork in the road at my 10-year mark, where I'm at home on leave, of all places, and I'm at a pizza shop, or one of two pizza places in the whole town, and you know, uh, I'm on leave and with some friends, and I see the same cracks in the road, and what I mean by that is like, they've been there since my whole life, same people doing the
Yeah.
same sort of thing, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I realized, man, like I was sitting on the sideline still, and I don't want to leave cracks. I want to leave craters. And that's where I was like, you know what, I'm going to sign up to be an arrow gunner is what they called us back then, and on the mighty AC-130 Spectre gunship. And that was in the 16th Special Operations Squadron, which, we got to definitely leave craters across, multiple continents. So, yeah, I never looked back after that first, what I would call real combat deployment.
Yeah, that's quite the career change for you too. Because what they call you, like load toads, or
Yeah. It was load tows, and this what they mean by that is like there's these hydraulic lift trucks, if you will, and when you
yeah,
put the legs out to get more of a balance, like a CG, like you look like a frog. So
yeah.
load tow, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I didn't get to read all. You sent me the digital book, and I read. I'm not a really fast reader. I'm a more of an audio book guy myself, but I read quite a bit. Probably half of it, and it was pretty. I'm going to finish it. I really enjoy it a lot.
Thank you, I appreciate
But
it. Yeah.
I like that you said the house's money term. Playing with the house's money,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
that's
The house
kind of what
money.
you turn that into your lifestyle, like, because you wanted to live a house money lifestyle where you're kind of,
Yeah, yeah,
you're
100%.
adrenaline junkie. You wanted to get out and do some stuff. So, and that's probably where that came in. There was probably a little more excitement after in 2010 when you changed careers in the
Yeah,
Air Force.
yeah, and where the thought of that house money of life comes from, and it's a reference to like how much and more aggressive would we gamble at a blackjack table in Vegas, right? If we had the house's money just playing for free, right? And
Yeah,
I was like, man, like I realized, man, there's no hearse behind a U-Haul, right? And like the only thing we can leave behind really after we pass is our memory, right? And like
yeah,
I got to thinking about it, like do I remember my great 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 grandfather's name? And I don't, and I was like, man, like what is this brief mortal life if not the pursuit of legacy, right? And that's like I had to go all in, right? Chips all in, and that's when I was going to join in the East SOCOM community there in the AC-130. So
yeah. And it seemed like it was probably more. I don't know if you have fun. Like, Rob O'Neill, you've probably heard of Rob O'Neill,
yeah, yeah,
famously shot Osama bin Laden. He's actually a good friend of mine.
awesome, man.
He's from Butte, and I remember sitting at the Vuvilla bar in Butte after 9/11, and he's telling me about this time when they parachuted into the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, swim up on a Russian submarine
Yeah,
and just take it over. And there's like eight of them, and they take over the whole sub. And he's like, I can't wait for shit to go down once after it was after 9/11. Then he goes,
yeah,
there's lots going on. I'm looking for he was just an adrenaline junkie, kind of,
oh yeah.
like you kind of described yourself. So I don't know if you call it fun or not. I imagine I'd be terrified the whole time. But you probably saw a lot of stuff and did a lot of things that would otherwise be fun if it wasn't the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, 100%. And like guys like Rob O'Neill, like you're talking about, like those guys, like are they're our nation's very best. Like 100%, man. I agree. And it's basically as a gunship guy, especially on the 16th SOS, right? Like you're there to make sure the those unconventional forces, like the guy
Yeah,
you mentioned, and those guys, make sure they get home. And you're providing that close air support. And there's really it's something you never get used to, man. Is when those guys call you in, what we call the overhead, man, and like everything will be quiet, right? And then they'll breach a door or something. Then the hornet's nest is pissed off, right? You got
yeah,
people running out the back, all that stuff, and that moment where they call you in, and you hear those words clear to engage, right? Like you get to, like I got to do more for my country, my first hour and a half, the time we shot a flight than I'd done my whole life, man. And
yeah.
there's a lot of that was my whole why all those years, is honestly making sure guys like that got to go home to their family. And as an aviator, that's what you're there for is them, and you know, there is, moments like when that doesn't happen, right? And that's it's not what you do in that life that haunts you, it's what you don't do. So that's when I end up, getting a drinking problem, getting help, and I'm a better man for getting help. I'll say that. So
Yeah, and it's got to be tough to see all that stuff. It's teamwork, as you say. You guys are doing it, but just like talking to Rob, and he's I don't know anybody who's been in more combat and shot did more people than him, and he struggles with it. He's been
oh,
pretty open out there. And the way he coped with it, he said he goes, I don't drink vodka because I like the taste. He
yeah,
drank it to drown the pain,
yeah,
and he was never fun to be around when he was drinking vodka. It was fun when he was drinking Budweiser, but when it was vodka, it was, so I just worry, what these soldiers go through. You guys
oh
go to
yeah,
military and they come back. you get out, it's a tough life. I mean, because you see so much, and then you're supposed to adjust to civilian life just like that.
Yeah, it's a wild concept, man. I had this realization like when I out processed, right? Like my last time in military uniform, right? You're at some personnel type, office type, scenario, and you're going over there everything. Make sure you got your DD 214, man. And you realize you walk out that door and there's not even a door handle on the other way to get back in, right? And it's like
Oh,
symbolic, like man, like all this for that, right?
yeah,
But you have to, I had to basically get over myself at that point, and be like, man, like this machine goes on, and I do believe what every service member did in Afghanistan, Iraq, all that matters. East Africa, that
yeah,
has to mean something, or else like if I look back, I'm lost, man, and but that was losing your why and like having a uniform on one day, then the next, man, well, I don't even know what business casual is, man. I had to learn what that was, stuff like that,
yeah,
just reaching for my hat every time I walk outdoors. It was a very surreal moment, and
yeah.
with that, comes the my why, right? Like, is it there still, right?
Yeah, because you have a purpose every day. You know what your
Oh
purpose
yeah,
is, and then you got to all of a sudden figure out what that purpose is, and it's not always clear. For a while.
oh yeah,
I know a lot of guys struggle. A lot of guys fall into alcoholism or drug addiction and stuff. And is that what you ended up
yeah.
drinking a lot?
Yeah, it ended up it was so bad, man, to be honest with you. Like it was at least a pint of like honestly, like some sort of even like you mentioned, vodka a night. And at least just to go to sleep, right? And that's my wife noticed it, my friends noticed it, everybody noticed it, and she's like, like she's like either me and your daughter or the alcohol. And I chose my thank God my family, and I
Yeah,
feel like the best decision I ever made was them, so.
yeah. It was good that you had somebody there to put the choice to you, probably
Oh yeah.
that, because otherwise maybe you would have never have, saw the light.
Yeah, yeah, I think man, she really did, like I remember later to me, like was honest about it. And then I had the most honest conversation with myself. And then I'm a man of faith, I believe in Jesus. I'm not probably the best example of that, but I had that conversation of
Yeah,
like I do have a problem, right? Just to admit that to yourself. And what I realized through all this, man, is like sometimes God will put you in isolation before elevation, right? Like basically I was depending on everything but my faith, the
yeah,
even the human spirit, right? Like, but that plays a huge part of my life now, so.
yeah. And yeah, I just can't imagine what you had to go through. I quit drinking myself. It'll be 18 years next month that I quit drinking, and it was one of those things where I wasn't drinking hardcore like that. I didn't, I just drank a lot after work. I worked at the newspaper, and I go out and drink
Oh
all the time, and eventually I kind of realized, I was either going to continue being a married father or I was going to be a single, divorced dad.
yeah, gotcha.
Figuring out weekends, and it just immediately I just dropped everything, and I quit cold turkey, and I haven't really missed it. But I always feel for those people that, because you see them struggle. You see a lot of struggle sometimes from people who are going through that, and it's not as easy for everybody.
Yeah, it's I was so it was so bad, man, to like the shakes when you wake up in the morning. Like it didn't start out, it was very subtle, right? Like
Yeah,
a weekend drinking habit, and then next thing you know, man, a pint's like nothing, right? And like I need more and more, and then you wake up and you get the shakes and all that. And I was in this vicious cycle, man, where I would like, get through the work day, come home and just start right up, right when I came through the door, and just waking up hungover. I just can't imagine like how I lived like that, man. Like looking back at it, like, you know what I mean? Like that was such a sad way for me to live.
yeah. Was that something that started after you got out of the military, or did it kind of start when you were still in the military?
It started when I was still in, and like, I'd hit the retirement button, and my whole, you know, I guess identity is what you would call it,
Yeah,
was gone, in my mind it was gone, and my why was gone. And like, even in my last deployment on the gunships to Iraq, man, it was so slow. It was a lot of ISR type stuff. And I get it now that like anytime we're doing these sort of jobs, like someone's having their worst day or possibly last day, right? But you should never want to have to do. But at the same time, you want to be the guy who gets to do his job, and like the firefighters, make a difference. Um, Nobility is a big thing to me, and
yeah,
basically that was over. That I saw the writing on the wall that I'd hit that button. Like I said, you go out that door, but you can't come back in, right? It's like the
yeah.
opposite of Hotel California in a way. But yeah, 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 but it hit me and what happened, man, was so I was on I also did and besides gunships, I did the H-860 pay off the rescue helicopters,
Mhm.
the Jolly Greens out at Moody Air Force Base, and I was on a deployment. It's like to East Africa, about 90 120 days, something like that. And then I was pretty nasty Katsaback, and I tell people that day we saw the best side of combat search and rescue, meaning like, we saved 5 lives, but then we saw the worst where an American, an Eagle, didn't make it back, and that, man, that really, like, when you're doing your prolonged exposure treatment with a psychiatrist, man, they're so good at like just getting that out of you, man. And like basically the whole idea behind that treatment is like, be comfortable being uncomfortable telling the story, sort of like we're doing now, right?
Yeah.
And she told me like 100 times, the psychiatrist, and it was like actually like a USOCOM psychiatrist, and she's like, "You should tell your story. You should tell your story." And I was like, "No, 100 times, man." And then like, you know, when I got out and that dust settled and that sense of purpose, all that, I was like, you know what? Maybe she's right. Maybe I can pay it forward. Like if one person reads the book and gets help, man, that's a blessing. That's a victory.
Yeah.
Because we're all very normal men and women doing very unordinary, uncommon things, right? And 2 decades of war, you name it, man. Like Bagram was like a second home. It's okay not to be okay, and to realize you need help. And if someone else realizes you need help, that's okay too. To
Yeah.
take that tactical knee and just get back up.
Yeah. And you named the book Moonchild because you're born on a full moon. Is that
Correct.
something you knew at the time, or did you know that your whole life, or is that something you looked up later on?
It was something I looked up later on, because I knew I was always drawn to the full moon, particularly,
Yeah.
and then when we started flying on the AC-130, the guns, just like we mostly fly at night, mostly. But you'd have MVGs, man. If there was like 100% of loon, like the whole big moon, right? Like it would make flying effortless, man. You could see the ridges and the mountains, and it was
Yeah.
almost like daylight with MVGs on. You know what I mean? Like you could see the enemy tracer fire, and there was always this the hidden part of it, like I can see them, but they can't see me type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially in Afghanistan. But yeah, and then I realized, like there's a symbolic part to the moon too, man. Of like people don't really see it like this, but it's the way I look at it is like on the darkest nights, man. That's when the moon burns the brightest, right? That
Yeah.
100% lumen, and that's when it really lights up the whole battle. So
Yeah. And you're in a pretty big. The plane that you're in is was pretty dang big.
yeah, yeah. Basically it's a AC-130, and the A is for attack, and C is cargo. Like if you've ever seen a regular C-130, they're transport
Yeah.
planes. Back in Vietnam, they were referred to as Puff the Magic Dragon. And what they did was they basically took a C-130, this mobility platform, and we put a 40 mil Bofors cannon and a 105, like a tank cannon, on the side of it. And I remember the 105 particularly, like it recoils like 49 inches, right? And like we'd be flying in a bank, and the whole plane would shift like 10 degrees, as we were shooting. And the Puff the Magic Dragon comes from Vietnam. When they were flying in the daytime, the guys on the ground would see like this puff of smoke after each
Yeah.
105. And that's where that whole term comes from.
All right. Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah. And so your job is to be you were the gunner. So you're sitting
And
there, you're
yeah,
firing the guns. And
yeah,
the picture I see is I know it's nothing like it, but the movie Memphis Belle when they're down below is almost like Star Wars when they're spinning around and shooting.
yeah, man.
That's good.
There's a lot of I don't know, because like an AC-130 gunner like really makes his money on like weapon analysis, right? Like recognizing the gun malfunctions and then getting that gun back online
Yeah.
in a few seconds. That would sound simple, but right, you got a JTAC on the ground, or one of those guys getting shot up and you can't figure out what's wrong with your gun. Like you don't want to be that guy. You're considered the weapons expert of the crew. And back then we had enlisted sensors that actually would aim and hit the what traditional fire button. And
Yeah.
we did have capabilities of degraded mode where we could tie a lantern to the 105 and pull it. And that's but yeah, basically like a flying artillery guy, I guess is what you'd call it.
Yeah.
And then it was awesome, man. You'd land from a flight, man, and like you'd walk by everybody. We'd look like a coal miner, from all the soot and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
And it's really the workhorses of the crew, and they called us sweaty, stuff like that. Yeah, but it was always a good time, man.
Yeah. It was a job that you like though.
No, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love being especially a Spectre gunship guy, and I loved even when I flew in the rescue helicopters, man. The Jolly Greens have such a big history there, so.
Yeah. Oh, you did. You flew in the helicopters and
Yeah, did both. Yeah, it was. I
you
guess it's it's rare somebody goes from fixed wing to rotary wing, but I did that, and then
Yeah.
back to fixed wing. Yeah. So
Okay. Did you ever fly a plane, or you just always
no,
riding?
no, as a gunner pride, always
Yeah.
always a gunner, and let the pilots, there was times, man, we, from the back, we'd say things like, pilot, do some pilot shit, not having a clue what they're doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff like that.
That would be that's a job that would be you got to be good at it, I guess. Obviously the job, but it's not just easy. Of course, looking back in World War II, when they always talked about some of those baseball players that went, like Ted Williams flew
Yeah.
planes in World War II, and I always figured maybe he was a pilot and then he was playing baseball, but no, they taught him how to fly that plane in like a crash course.
Yeah,
He never flew a
yeah,
plane before in his life.
man, that's so wild you brought that up because I was talking to a buddy at work about this. I'm like, man, like World War II, they literally taught these guys how to take off, and landing was like they may or may not get shown how to land a plane. You may get one or
Yeah.
two bounces, right? Like I couldn't imagine that. Even like you know, oh, just shy of 3,000 hours total, right? Like as a gunner, like I couldn't imagine like somebody saying, okay, come land this attack cargo aircraft. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
you wouldn't be a good guy if anyone ever, like in a situation like an airplane when the pilots are overcome by food poisoning, and you wouldn't be able to jump up there and land a plane then.
I I don't want to say I couldn't, man, but it would be testing. I can read a checklist and I could probably talk to air traffic control, and I could do what I had to do to, I think, at least get us on the ground. What happens after we bounce two or three times, I don't know.
Yeah. So you said you were working after the military. Are you still working in the same job?
It's basically a civilian contractor now. What I do now is I build scenarios for the here at Canada Air Force Base, the AC-130 crews, and it's all virtual reality. Like basically, have you seen like the flight simulators?
Yeah.
Like the real big ones, right? Like it's
Yeah.
that, but you're putting in, threats, emergency procedures, guys to shoot back at the aircraft, all these different things, basically a whole operation.
Yeah.
From some lessons learned, and you try to paint that picture for them, and best case scenario, a guy would get back and say like, "Hey, man, that scenario really helped me out downrange," or whatever the case may be. That's I guess it keeps me in the game still, and that why is
Yeah.
still there. So.
Still serving the country in a way there too.
I
There's
feel like yes, sir. That's
yeah.
always important to me, So
Yeah. And so you start writing a book, and it kind of came from the therapist telling you to tell your story. Was she telling you to write a book, or was she just telling you to talk to more people about it?
she was like, just basically tell a story. And there was this thing they had on base. It was called storytellers, and like there was guys from like Vietnam, and I sort of never felt worthy like telling my story, you know what I mean, stuff like that. And but when I got out, man, and like I was like, man, she's right. Like every time I wanted to drink, I would pick up a pen instead of a bottle, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And like I
Yeah.
would literally like Eminem style like scratches on napkins, whatever I had around me, when I think of something, and then I would throw it all together. And then I got a hold of a war journalist, actually, Holly McKay, and on LinkedIn of all places, I messaged her and she messaged me back. And next thing you know, I have an appointment. And then there's back and forth with the Word documents, answering questions. And she's like, "Hey, I got a publisher if you want me to introduce you." And she did that. And next thing you know, I have a actual hard copy book, and it is
Very nice.
or hard copy, soft copy, excuse me. But it is a short read, man. It's like a 2 hour read, and it's just
Yeah.
ironic. I'd probably read on a fifth grade level, man, but somehow I got a book. It's
You never thought you'd ever be the guy writing a book, huh?
yeah. I never thought in a million years, but like, man, it really helps. Like when you get these stories, because without podcasters and without authors, man, and storytellers, right? Like these stories die in the sand over there, man. And I think it's a real important thing, and I'm a big fan of every veteran has a story, man. Every American has a story, right? Like, so
Yeah.
if you got words in your heart, man, bleed it on the page, you'll feel 100 times better.
Yeah, I always thought I'd like to write a book about my story, but then I was thinking, man, nothing really interesting ever happened to me nothing big. I never went to war. I never did anything like that. But the
But I
idea
guess
of having a book is
Montana
fun.
alone, like Montana alone, man, there's a lot of good books from Montana. I mean, the
Yeah.
river runs through it, all that. My dad was a big fisherman growing up, and I love that movie, man. Even Yellowstone, man, that whole series is just mind
Yeah.
blowing, right? Like,
I haven't seen that yet. I have River Runs Through It memorized, but I haven't seen Yellowstone yet.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Montana. My wife's actually mentioned it a few times, and
Yeah.
she's I mentioned before she's Native American, and we want to go up there and see some of that side of things, So
Yeah, it's really nice up here, and I had some friends from college that came because I was in Missoula, which was where Norman McLean was from, and there's kids that went to school with me that were there just because of that movie.
oh yeah,
So it
yeah. I
was
mean,
it was
it's an
big.
awesome movie. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and of course, and Robert Redford just passed away last week. You know,
man, I did not know that, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
and he was, of course, he's one of my favorite actors in so many ways. Bitter River runs through it. He
oh
was
yeah,
the director of that and narrated it and everything. But such a good
yeah,
movie.
that was yeah one of my favorites for sure. That, and then you had what's the other Brad Pitt movie that's based in Montana?
Oh, was there
He
one
has
based in
long,
Montana?
yeah, he's like has long hair, and he ends up fighting the Germans, and his brother dies. Man, I can't. For the life of me, I wish I could remember. Really good movie, man.
Oh, yeah, I'm not. I don't watch as much movies as I used to.
Yeah,
I'm really good at mentioning, referencing any '80s and early '90s movies, but
yeah,
the
yeah.
new ones
Yeah.
not so much.
He like
Chris,
stabs a bear in the claw or something. Yeah, I'd have
oh,
to. Man,
yeah,
yeah,
that I know it. Yeah, I know it. I was
yeah. Me and my wife.
Legends of the Fall. Is that?
Exactly. Yeah, Legend of the
Yeah,
Fall. Yeah, that's a
yeah, I did
classic,
see
man.
that. I saw that. Yeah, when it was in the movie theater, I remember seeing that. So that was
Man,
early
that's
'90s.
awesome.
Yeah, it was like his first big movie after A River Runs Through It.
Yeah, yeah. It was back to back, if I remember right. That was awesome, awesome time in movies, man.
Yeah, for sure. So now when you're writing this, you're writing on napkins and just scratching down stuff
Yeah,
by,
yeah. No book, and I
yeah,
got to the point where I'd leave one beside the bed, right? Like, and just like think of something and write it down real quick, and in the morning try to remember, oh, I meant this by that. And
yeah,
then you start typing it, and make it flow. I guess the good thing I had going into this was a timeline, of growing up, and then after 18, it was all the same timeline. It was all military and Air Force, so it
yeah,
was just the spaces between the words, I was getting on there, so.
yeah. And so it was a pretty therapeutic thing then for you to do too. It
Oh
helped
yeah.
yourself and then hopefully help some other people when they read that book. So
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely therapeutic, man. And honestly, it made me think there's some really funny moments in there, man. Um, I don't know if I could get into one of the stories, man, but
absolutely, yeah,
yeah, we were in Afghanistan, man, and this is one of the lighter side of things, but we're flying right over it, somewhere I think near Helmand, if I remember right, and basically we're getting ready to shoot, and there's the drone guys, right, and they're tying up communications radios, like stating the obvious, and I call it SA bombing, as in like situational awareness and draining everybody's situational awareness.
yeah.
And finally, the aircraft commander, my pilot's like, he's like, hey, Dyer, he's like, tell those dick shiners to get off the radio. And I'm like, what? He's like, no, I want you to use those exact words. So, and this chat room, right? I put in there, and where everybody, God and the ground force commander, everybody could see it. Like, hey, dick shiners, get off the radio, and nothing. I didn't whisper it to him, right? And then,
Yeah.
we ended up like shooting about five guys that night, and right before we leave, man, you hear on the radio like, "Hey, Spectre 6-1, when you guys return to base, come see me." And it was like a full bird colonel. So, yeah, yeah, man. This moments like that, that this combat, stuff like that happens.
Yeah. Well, you gotta, even though when you're in a serious, literally life or death situation, sometimes a little levity really
Oh
goes a
yeah,
long way for guys, camaraderie and stuff like that.
yeah, and some guys are so good in those moments, man. It's like somebody laugh. I hate to say it like that. Somebody laughing at a funeral, like somebody farting in church or something.
Yeah.
Those dark moments, and they somehow make you laugh. Like I've always looked up to guys like that. And I think Bill Murray said too, like something to the effect of like, if you can get someone to laugh, you can make them do anything. So
Yeah.
there is a camaraderie there.
Yeah. And it's probably, if you can make light of a situation or not really make light of a situation, but, enjoy yourself and still give each other shit, in a
Oh yeah,
situation,
yeah,
it might, some people might think, oh, you're being a clown, you can't do it right, but it might mean that you have good focus because you can keep your composure
oh yeah.
in a tough situation, I would think.
Yeah, I think too, it like helps you like recage in a way. It's like, okay, that was funny. Let me see the bigger picture here, right? What's going
Yeah.
on? And there's moments where you're not doing a lot, and downtime, or you're droning around in a circle for 8 hours, and it's like, man, like somebody will crack a joke, just to break up the silence, because silence has always scared me, man. Like static has always scared me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So these are all your stories. Did you Did you just were they easy to remember, or were they the stories that you didn't think you remembered, and all of a sudden they came back, or did you have to call
Yeah,
anybody's up and talk to them about remembering it?
yeah. I had to call a couple people, and then what would happen was it was like a domino effect. Like I would remember one story, and because it was in the same deployment or timeline,
Mm.
it would like domino a bunch of other stories. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this happened, and basically it was picking and choosing which was the best one to put in there, and it made sense to like, because a lot of this stuff is like, there's acronyms, man. There's all this stuff, right? The military uses like to paint that. It was hard for me to paint that picture for the civilian populace, right? And to
Yeah.
get away from some of that lingo and stuff like that.
Yeah. Did the military have to approve your book at all with stories of the military, or were you out
No,
far
no,
enough?
what happened was my publisher, like, basically, I knew what I could put in there, what I couldn't, and I
Yeah.
kept it, all safe, all unclassed, and stuff like that, and open source stuff, and basically, I just wrote it, man, and went through, made sure I didn't have anything in there like that, and then I got it to him, and next thing you know, I got a book, man. So
Yeah. And your writing style is great because it's almost like you're just sitting there, sitting at a table talking to you about your stories. It's just like you're in a conversation and you can hear your voice and everything. I think it's you got a very good writing style for a guy
okay, I
who never
appreciate it.
thought he'd write a book.
Yeah, yeah. Like I told you, man, I legit like I took a college placement exam when I first came in the Air Force, man. And there's this thing called the Community College of the Air Force, and like long story short, it's like a 2 year degree for an enlisted guy,
Yeah.
and it probably not worth the piece of paper it's printed on, but like I I couldn't take I had to take this exam, right? This placement exam, and like I scored so bad on this thing. It was like English 101, the basic English, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And this teacher, she's like, yeah, she's like, listen, man, she's like, here's a normal person's reading later level at your age, right? You're down here at fifth grade, like something to that effect. So I had to do like a book report on like where the red fern grows or something like that, and then she let me take the regular English class. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you got through the English class anyway, because
yeah, yeah.
it seemed like you certainly wrote at a high enough level. That's for sure. Higher than
Yeah, I
fifth grade
appreciate,
level, I'm guessing.
yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a proud product of public schools in North Carolina, Appalachia. So
Now, how long did it take you when you started writing the book before you wrote your last word?
yeah, I would say like anywhere from 6 to 7 months before book in hand, So it was relatively fast,
Yeah,
from
that's
what I've
pretty
been
quick
told,
turnaround.
Yeah, about
Yeah,
7 months to like, pen to paper to book.
yeah. And when did it came out in 2025? What was the date that you actually released?
It was April 7th is on my birthday. They made it
Uh,
on that day. Yeah, so
oh, it came out on your birthday, which all the great ones are born in April, by the way. I was born April 10th.
awesome. Appreciate it. Yeah, Aries, man.
As my brother always points out, I was born on the day that the Titanic took off, as a
Oh
symbolic,
man. Yeah,
not the actual day, but the anniversary of the
yeah,
day.
yeah, anniversary, yeah.
So that had to feel pretty good when you opened. I don't know how that happened. If you got a box sent to you, you open up a box, or if they just handed you your first copy of your book. That's got to feel
Yeah,
pretty good to see your name on a book and knowing that you poured all that into that, and to see the final product. That's got to feel. I'd imagine that feels great.
yeah, and it still has man, I had a gunner friend the other day. It still hasn't really hit me like he's like he's like Anthony, man, he's like, you have a published book. Like, do you know how big a deal it is? I said, really? He's like, that's a big deal. And I never thought about it really, you know what I mean, until he sort of said that, and it made me realize like all these podcasts and all this stuff coming to fruit. And but yeah, that the as far as getting the book in hand, that was cool because like the publisher ordered basically one for the editor, which was Holly McKay, one for him, and then one for me, right? And like you have to go line by line, and like even that digital version I sent you, man, there's like typos and stuff in there. That was the very like before the hard
Yeah,
copy. Um, but yeah, it was a very, but it went by way faster than I thought, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's. Have you gotten many reviews on it yet?
It's about I think I took the 40, just north of 40,
Yeah.
on the Amazon link.
Has it been going over pretty well?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I think they're all five except for one of them, man. So I'll take that.
Yeah, you just want to track that one guy down who didn't give a five, though, don't you? Take a flight
Nah,
over his house.
but he had some really good, honest feedback, man. I thank him for that. So
Yeah. Well, if he's taking the time to give feedback, it probably resonated with him in
oh
to
yeah,
some degree, right? So even
yeah,
if
yeah,
he,
and he was right. I could elaborated a lot on the stories with the guys, and the stuff while we were flying, stuff like that. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that but I guess the point of the book though is to help other people. It helped yourself.
100%.
Do you see that? Have you had anybody reach out to you saying, "Hey, you kind of helped me see the light," or "Hey, I went through that too," kind of stuff?
Yeah, yeah, man, it's been overwhelming the amount of like messages I've got from like guys and gals I flew with, right? And like they're like, "Hey, man, like I'm so glad you did this. Now we got a book as aviators or gunship people, right? Like they're like, I went through this same dilemma, man. And like, so there's some high ranking people that message me that, man, and I'm like, man, like that's I never knew, right? They never knew. Like I think we're so bad, as far as like no one wants to be the guy to go down and not be able to fly because of a mental health problem, right? Or an
Yeah.
army guy does a guy on the ground doesn't want to be the guy to get a do not arm. But at the same time, like there comes a point when you have to say time out. Like I do got issues right now, and basically to resonate that with people and be like, hey, it is okay to not be okay and to get help. And man, your health and your mental health is priceless. Your family
Yeah.
depends on it, right? Your happiness depends on it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if how much help is available out there, or maybe there is help available and a lot of people don't see it. I don't know if you follow the news, but in Anaconda, Montana, which is about a half hour drive from Butte. There was on August 1st, there was a case where a former military guy went into a bar in the morning and shot four people. And then there was a
Yeah,
manhunt for a week. I don't know if you saw that in the news or not,
yeah,
made
yeah.
national
That's all
news.
bits and pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a site where his family, I did a lot of the cases sealed, but his family was trying to get this guy help. And I don't know where, if he was just not taking the help or if there wasn't enough help out there or he couldn't find the right help. But you look at that and it's a sad story. Obviously, he killed four people. But I also feel for that guy because, he's a guy who went and signed up like you did. He signed up
Yeah.
to fight for our country after, I think he find right around the same age as you. And then obviously the mental issues from that, led to
Yeah.
something that he wouldn't have been otherwise. So, I mean, it's kind of a sad deal. So I really feel for the veterans who struggled to get help.
Oh yeah, and I will say that it has gotten better. Like at least from like like Air Force Special Operations Command, which is USOCOM. There's this whole thing that's like it's called preservation of the force and family. And so basically, there's you have a trainer in your squadron, you have uh, at one point like a physical therapist in your squadron, and then you have a mental health, what they call an MFLAC, with psychiatrist in your squadron, like in your squadron,
Yeah.
and so it's getting more welcome now. I will say that, and it's just is I think it's one of those things we have to be like, okay, there was a stigma, like if we're being honest about this, right? And
Yeah.
to be like, now it's okay to get help, and it does help when guys see other guys go. I know that sounds crazy, man, but like if they'll see like someone else go, you'll see like, okay, maybe I want to get checked out. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. I think what you do is important because it opens up and shows people that, there's might be some guy out there reading say, geez, I deal with a lot of the same issues. Maybe I should try to get help or whatever. Or somebody who might read it whose family member is going through that and they might
hey,
see some stuff. So it's the stigma. Getting past the stigma is one of the toughest parts for mental health, and I think
100%.
just about everybody deals with some kind of mental health at one point in
Oh
time
yeah.
in their life. If not, if those who say they don't are usually lying.
Yeah, it's that every night, man, I look at myself in the mirror. Now I do this. I used to not do this, and like, man, was I the best father I could be today? Was I the best husband I could be? Was I the best aviator? Whatever the case may be, and did I drink? Okay, if I could say no, then that's a win right there. That's a victory, man. And it's the accountability mirror is a real thing when you have that conversation, and like I
Yeah,
said, when you know.
yeah. And now, are you completely sober now?
Yep, yeah, completely sober. It was February, I think my last February 28th. I remember that because it was the last day of February of 21. Theirs was my last
Yeah,
drink. So,
yeah,
yeah, it was surreal.
yeah. Is it a struggle every day, or is it
Oh, yeah.
something once you go past?
It's 100% a struggle every day, man. And it's someone asked me actually, ironically, we were at a casino and like there's a bar like right here where we're sitting to eat, and the lady asked me, "Is it hard?" I'm like, "Every day it's hard. Right now it's hard, man. They're pouring, you know, you
Yeah,
know, Don Julio over there. I want a shot of that, but you know, I know what happens if I do because I'm an all or nothing guy, and." I can't have one or two and three be social like most people do, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah, so
Yeah, that's how I was. I could never once. Well, I actually used to drink a lot, so a lot of beer mostly, and I would be, I wouldn't be too drunk because I had high tolerance. Then I got married, and I drink once in a while. And when I got when my tolerance is so bad, it was having one or two beers was impossible. It was I'd drink 20, and so I quit. But it is hard because alcohol's such a big thing in our society. You can't watch a football game without watching a bunch of beer commercials, or and friends, hey, let's go have a beer. Hey, I owe you a beer. I want to buy you a beer. And it's stuff. And it's hard to tell people sometimes. No, I don't drink, and
yeah.
it's because
Well, yeah,
it's
especially in a community, man, where like, I remember back home, if you want a moonshine, man, you go to your neighbor's house, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, I think I joke in the book about how they might as well use it in communion in North Carolina, man, because everybody
yeah,
had it, so it is part of the culture. And then flying as well, man. I'd learn there'd be a 12 pack there, and but it's when I opened the gates myself, that's when it came in. So.
yeah. The moonshine, I never did have that. I imagine that's got to be like drinking gasoline, man.
Oh yeah, man. I did some stuff I'm not proud of on
Yeah,
moonshine.
but that's a big deal. You're from Carolinas there. That's
Oh yeah.
moonshining was a big deal.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's still around. They say I guess there's shows and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That it must have been an interesting place to grow up, though. Did
Oh
you
yeah.
a lot of hunting and stuff there? Could you do?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did a lot of fishing. Me and my dad were big trout fishermen,
Yeah,
and then yeah, I know some guys did bear hunting, and of course deer and stuff like that. But I was always a fisherman, man. So
yeah. Is there any fishing down there in New
New
Mexico?
Mexico. There's I went to this place called Blue Water Lake, and there's like muskie there. Caught one of those, real little one, but
Yeah,
a few places with trout here and there, but it's nothing like the streams in Appalachian, man. And I'm sure where you're from, man, it's crazy fishing where you're from, man. Like and a whole movie
yeah,
on it, So
yeah. And then I never take. I'm the least Montana guy you'll ever meet. I don't ski. I don't fish. But I of course, when my dad used to take me fishing, we'd go up to Georgetown Lake, and his idea was fishing. He'd get a couple lawn chairs, he'd get the little things that hold the pole. He'd cast it out there, and we just sit it. And I
yeah,
just had to sit there and watch it. I'm like, I want to hold the pole. No, just sit there and watch it. And we never caught
yeah,
anything. So he kind of he made me. I would rather go to church almost than go fishing with my dad sometimes when I was a kid.
yeah. I
but
know the
but
feeling, man.
but no one ever introduced me to fly fishing. Which I still one of
Yeah.
these days I got to try fly fishing.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's therapeutic in itself, man. So
Yeah, even if you don't catch anything, just being out
yeah.
there
Oh yeah.
doing that. So life's going pretty good for you now. Your daughter, how old's your daughter?
My daughter's 9 years old, and man, I tell people she's so brilliant, man, so much smarter than I'll ever be, and I'm so proud of her, And she tells me she wants to write a book, So we're sort of
Yeah,
kicking around some ideas how to do that, but yeah, I'm
yeah,
excited. So.
yeah. So that's good. I'm glad you kind of adjusted through, and this is a happy story of overcoming some issues
Oh yeah,
following the military. So
yeah,
unfortunately, we see a lot of the sad endings of these stories, but we're seeing a happy
100%.
one.
Yeah, and I tell people, man, if you're going through it, this is my last, I guess, words of wisdom. If not that I've ever had any of that, but like, an airplane takes off against the wind, not with it. As cliche as that is,
Yeah,
man. So, if you can get through that adversity, man, there's a lot of lift, man. So.
yeah. And I guess before we get out of here, I want to make that you said something in the book early in the book where one of your teachers told you you're not going to make a living looking
She
out the
did.
window.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, I remember it was. Yeah, someone asked me who it was, and when I was at this book sign, I'm not going to say it or anything like that, or the grade, it'd be obvious. But
Yeah,
yeah, like it was ironic too, man, because like we're in these pods, right? Like
yeah,
there's like one window, like per like I don't know 50 feet or whatever it was, and yeah, I think I was like looking at the wall because I was just like bored or whatever the case was,
yeah,
a young kid, and so yeah, like you're never going to make a living looking out a window, and I've thought about that almost every flight, man. Like
yeah.
you
There you
know,
are.
yeah, as I'm getting paid to do one of the best jobs in the Air Force, man.
Yeah,
So.
looking out the window while you're doing it. Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
pretty good. Did you get a hold of that teacher and talk about?
No, I'm honestly I'm a little afraid to, man, but I'm sure someone's told her, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine she'd probably be happy to hear that her words are still ringing with you,
It
no
did
matter what.
it did spark a fire, man, because it's
Yeah.
like basically saying like, man, you're never going to get out of Appalachia. That's how I took it. Right? Like, you're not going to be anything, you know. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to be something, man. I'm getting there,
Yeah. And that seemed to be kind of a driving force for you a lot was getting out of there because it seems like something a lot of people just never did, right? They,
Yeah,
like you said, the
yeah,
same
100%.
cracks were there the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's there's construction jobs back home, and I didn't want to do that, and stuff like that. Now there's a brewery on every corner, man. But yeah, I wanted more, man. I wanted to, like, it's good to have your roots, and to have those morals, values that molded me, that I was taught, right, and
Yeah.
you take them with me, and but what's more important is where I'm going, my wings, right, and the Air Force let me, see ahead, see what I'm doing, man, see if I'm making a difference or not, so you
Yeah.
can't have your roots and wings no matter what people say.
Yeah. So have you thought about what's next? Is there going to be a sequel to Moonchild?
Yeah, yeah, I'm actually working on something, man.
Yeah.
It's yeah, and then also what I really want to do, man, is I'm trying to create this hub or this like website where like veterans, first responders, you know, people in these uncommon jobs, right, could get like a nonprofit way to pay for the publishing and editing for that person, because every veteran has a story, every first
Yeah.
responder, everybody has a story, right? And if there's a way to fund that, I would definitely, I'm reaching out to a couple people here and there, but I'm going to try to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah. We definitely need more people telling their stories, you know.
100%, I agree.
Yeah. Because, yeah, there's, of course, I kind of a storyteller as it is, but but I don't have the interesting personal story. I tell other people's stories, not my own. But I think that's great though. It seems you saw some incredible stuff. You lived a, incredible career and, pretty interesting life leading up to that career, and you told a story and it seems like, that's the thing about it is, we've never met in person. This is the first time I've talked to you. I've read, like, 80 some pages or something like that. I can't remember how many pages I got into the book over. I was reading it last night and they're going fast, but I feel like I've known you for a long time, just from reading
Yeah,
the book. And I think that's a great.
I was just thinking that about you, Bill. Yeah, just yeah, there's certain people, and I think God puts people in people's lives for a reason, man. Friendship, fellowship, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's just to get a laugh. Who knows, man? But like,
Yeah.
I'm glad I met you, man, and I think you got an awesome platform, and you do an awesome job telling stories, man. So
Well, thanks. Yeah. And I thought it was pretty cool. I just out of the blue, I got an email from Eve, I think it was.
yeah, yeah, it was the
Yeah.
Lee Bailey. Yep.
Yeah. She just asked me if I'd be interested in having you on there. She told me a little about you and I said, absolutely.
Yeah, I
Seems like a
appreciate
great
it,
story
man.
to tell. You know, uh, and hopefully when you get this next book come out, you come on, we can talk about it again.
I'd
And
love to, Bill.
And if you ever get your way up to around Montana, Butte, southwestern Montana, you ever get up here, this is where there's some good fishing there. I don't know exactly where it is, but I have some people who can take you there.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that, Bill. Yeah, I will take you up on that offer. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, Anthony, again, thanks for your time and congratulations on a great book. Good for
Thanks,
you.
bro.
This is a real cool deal, and thank you for your service to our country. You weren't just doing that for your comrades. You were doing it for people like me. For us to have freedom and to live our lives. So I appreciate you and all the people who put their lives on the line for our country.
Awesome, Bill. I appreciate you, sir. It's been a pleasure.